They said I wasn't going to walk for 8 weeks, and I walked after 3. So it does seem like I'm way ahead of schedule, and I'm already doing some legwork.
Why do I have a feeling in the next 2 weeks you'll be either on the basketball court or on the football field? Because I know your crazy ego is going to allow you to think that you are healing faster than the normal human being.
So a couple of things. First and foremost, the doctors already said I am healing faster than the normal human being. Okay. The words he actually used were built different. So let's let that be clear. Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer, the podcast that examines the relationship between adversity, balance, and success off the court for high-performance athletes. I'm Aboudi Al-Katan.
And you know who I am, Sam Douglas, baby.
How you living, Sam? How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so happy to be back up on here.
Me too. Today's episode's a little different. No guest with us today, but Sam and I realized that in doing Beyond the Buzzer, we're actually living beyond the buzzer with this podcast. And it's just as important for us to candidly speak about what we're learning in this process and what we hope to accomplish with this podcast. Sam, why don't you walk us through some of the things you're working on in life and what's been going on with you?
I've been very busy with SD13 Sports Academy, especially now that summer's around the corner. And preparing for all the athletes that are trying to go abroad, go to the States, for them to experience some of AAU, some of different camps as well. And at the same time, enjoying Ramadan and trying to enjoy family. And trying to see what's my next venture, like they say, what is next for me. I've been catching myself on the board side a little bit, like trying to fetch something new. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, especially after last year, me trying to expand and that not going well to what I expected. But it's been challenging. It's been fun, but at the same time, I'm still trying to see what does Sam want to do next. And I guess that's the name of the game.
I wanted to ask you, so I know that you tried to expand into a different sport last year. You can speak whether or not, on how deeply you want to go into this, but what is your goal with SD13, right? From where you started to where you are now, the changes have been huge, right? You started off with just a couple age groups, I think only guys at the beginning. Now you're doing boys and girls from age, 11 all the way up until the pros. Where do you want to take this, right? Do you want to keep it as a basketball-focused business? Do you want to add other sports? Do you want to build a new gym, new countries? I mean, I feel like there's so many different things you can do.
You know what I started? I started purely player development to try to help kids. And then from there, it got to the older kids. It got to the pro levels. And then it got to hosting leagues, having the best leagues in Jordan. From there, travel teams where we get to travel to Lebanon, Dubai, Spain. And when I tried to expand last year to go into soccer, paddle, tennis, I think it was a little bit too early.
Well, if you call it soccer, by the way, no one's going to be listening to you. It's called football, but I'll let you slide there.
Sorry, football, my bad. Football on this side of the world. I think it just wasn't timing. And as they say in business and in everything else, actually, timing is everything. The timing was incorrect. It wasn't the right timing for me to expand, to be honest with you. And I take full responsibility on that.
Is that because you didn't have the right team to manage a separate project? Is it because with basketball, it's a bit more seamless for you? You know the ins and outs, but when you start to go to a different sport, maybe there are things you pick up that you didn't understand?
Yo, you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Purely ego.
Interesting. Why?
I had my financial advisor advise me that I don't know if this was a good move at the time. And me being Sam, who I am, and me wanting to take on challenges and prove people wrong, as always, and be a risk taker, I went and jumped on it without the proper team around me, surrounded around me, without giving myself a leeway. Because look, anytime you take a business over, you need to give yourself a 3 months leeway, at least minimum. From there, so you can go ahead and set up everything in place.
So were you buying an existing business, or were you trying to build out a separate function of SD13, just so the listeners are clear?
I was trying to build out. So the field and everything was there. The opportunity was there for me to come and take over the whole project around me and expand to all these variety of different sports. One, I didn't have the correct people in place. Two, my financial advisors say financially, I don't think it's the correct decision right now because you are taking it over at a tough time in Jordan at the time. And knowing me, I said, I'm a risk taker. I want to show that I could do it. I'm always around this place. I know I can manage it. And when a project becomes that big, you can't micromanage. You got to have a team. And usually, like if you, let's say you buy a restaurant or you're going to open anything, usually you talk to the landlord and tell them, hey, give me a 3 months leeway before we start everything else. I was so privileged to everything, to what I was thinking, because I wanted to prove the world that I could do it. I didn't even think about that strategy. I just jumped right in, signed the contract. My rent starts tomorrow. And it's a mistake, and I learned from it. And till today, I look back and I still try to dissect everything I did to keep learning from it. And this is why the next move, I'm going to be that much better again. But I think I got too cocky. My ego got in the way, and I failed. And I'm a man. I took ownership, got out of it 6 months into it, and now back to SD13, and I'm looking for the next thing. But you asked me, well, where do I see SD13? I definitely see it becoming like an academy, like an IMG academy, like a DME academy, like a place where students can go to school and at the same time practice their sport.
And on the ego part, I feel you. I mean, I'm crippled for the next 6 months because I completely let my ego take over and I thought I could play through a game injured. So I know what it's like to let your ego sort of get in your head and make you do things you don't want it to do.
Let's talk about the injury. What the hell were you doing anyways?
I was playing football.
There we go. Playing football. I told you.
The day before I know. The day before I was supposed to go skiing, there was no need for me to play. I planted wrong. I tore muscles in the bottom of my foot. And so the initial prognosis was 2 months. Now the doctor said 6, but they said I wasn't going to walk for 8 weeks and I walked after 3. So it does seem like I'm way ahead of schedule and I'm already doing some leg work.
Why do I have a feeling in the next 2 weeks you'll be either on the basketball court or on the football field? Because I know you're crazy. Ego is going to allow you to think that you are healing faster than the normal human being.
So a couple of things. First and foremost, the doctors already said I am healing faster than the normal human being. Okay. The words he actually used were built different. So let's let that be clear. But secondly, I did think I'm going to New York in a couple of days and I want to hoop with Mike. But something played on my mind and I realized that you're now 44, right? I'm going to be 30 in like a couple months. When I'm healthy in 2 months, bro, I would cook you. Like we're at the age now where I would cook you in a one-on-one. And so I'm not going to let my ego get in the way of my recovery. I'm going to get healthy, fly to Jordan in July. And for the first time ever, we're going to film it and I'm going to cook you in a one-on-one and we're going to put it on our channel.
Like I don't really think you can cook me in a one-on-one. And I don't think you can cook me in a shooting game. Experience plays a huge role. I probably only need 3 dribbles max to get my shot off every time. And I know you like to do 59 moves prior to shooting the ball.
I'm telling you, July 24, the student becomes the master. I'm putting it out there right now. But no, I feel you, and I appreciate you being candid about what's going on with SD13. For me, I think it's funny. This is like my side project, right? Like what I do full time is something I'm obsessed with, and it's going well. And alhamdulillah, we're still investing. But I found myself learning a lot in this experience, right? So the first thing is, the intro I gave today is a little bit different than the normal one. It's a podcast about examining the relationship between adversity and balance. And I think that's so important. When you look at our guests, right, a lot of the conversation isn't really about succeeding after sport. And even though it's a big part of it, a lot of it is how they have used adversity in their own lives to propel them forward, either during the sport or after. And I think it's important that as our podcast grows, by the way, we're about a year since you first texted me about this. But as our podcast grows and develops, we need to understand that what we thought at the beginning is going to be very different than what we think now and what we're going to think in hopefully a couple of years. So for me, one, it's understanding that naturally the podcast has evolved. We don't need to be so rigid all the time and focus on this person was successful on the court and off it, or on the track and off it. There's stories to be told about adversity, and I think that's equally important.
Agree.
I think the second thing with Beyond the Buzzer that's become that's really helped me a lot is that it's so humbling to put something on the internet and to know that, maybe no one's going to watch it and it's not going to blow up the way you thought it was before, and that this is a patience game. And I think for someone that obviously what I've done, like basketball and venture, these things require patience. So I've known my entire life, just like you, that if you want to be great at something, it's the work behind the hours. It's the work, behind the camera. It's what no one sees. But sometimes when it's so public facing and it's so social, you post something, you're like, why doesn't this have 1 million views? And I think coming to terms with the fact that if this is going to blow up, it has to be something we do because we love it and because we enjoy it, and that anything else will come naturally after. And just coming to that realization has been quite humbling, and something that I really enjoyed, honestly, and enjoying the process.
Talking about that, I think when we first spoke about doing this podcast, we talked about growing organically and naturally. And I think we're doing that. I think we're getting great feedback, and we're working, we're evolving. And that's the key. I think you and I know that we just need to keep getting better at it. And I want to thank our guest. Our guest is helping us grow. And it does feel kind of weird. I know I've always been in social media through basketball, through what I do on the court. And now on social media through my words and what I say and what we highlight. So it's been interesting, but I'm enjoying it a lot, especially getting to mess with you all the time and and for us to have fun over this podcast. So it's just been great.
And speaking of growth, shout out to our new team member, Rob Rice, who we just hired as a social media guy, making my life a lot easier so I don't have to post cringy videos of myself anymore. We are growing. It's exciting to have like a team member, and one who's a friend of mine, obviously, but nonetheless, building out a team. Let's shift gears a little bit. I think one thing we don't do enough on this podcast is, again, speak about things that we understand. And as someone who has coached in the NBA yourself, I think it's an important topic that we cover. There's a lot going on. I personally think we are watching the highest level of basketball we've ever watched. So first question to you right now is, what has surprised you about this NBA season and what's excited you the most?
Surprises me is seeing how Golden State and the Los Angeles Lakers struggling, yet both teams probably have the best two players we've ever seen in NBA history, in Curry and of course in LeBron James. And to see them both in 9th and 10th place, I'm very surprised.
This is super interesting for me, is that you look at the way the West is broken down, and you have right now, the Nuggets are going to be the 1 seed, and no matter who they play, they're the Nuggets, right? They're whatever. You look at 2 and 3, okay? You've got 2 teams that have never been that good before. You've got OKC and you've got Minnesota, right? Then you go down the rank. 4 and 5 is the Clippers, and I forget who's 5, but I remember it's a team that has been there before. And Dallas, right? We're going to spend a bit of time talking about Dallas because I want to speak about Luka. Looking at like 6, 7, 8, right? Realistically, that 6, 7, 8 could be Suns, Lakers, Warriors after the play-in, right? There's a couple teams that are in.
Don't forget Sacramento as well. It's in there.
So I'm not a believer in Sacramento.
Okay, cool, fair.
I don't believe they're that good. So this is the point I'm trying to make. OKC, even though I love Shea and I think he's the future. OKC, Minnesota, again, I love AE. I think he's the future Ant-Man. But those 2 teams in Sacramento, if you're telling me that they have to play the Suns, the Warriors, and the Lakers, I easily think we could see 2 seed out, 3 seed out in the first round. I understand that momentum is important, and I know you were going to talk about it. I'll let you go talk about LA and Warriors being on the lower side. But you can't tell me in a 7-game series, if OKC finishes 2 and Lakers snag the 7 spot, LeBron's not going to sweep their ass.
I agree with you. If LeBron comes in 7 seed, 100% he's sweeping whoever. He's going to win the series. Not sweeping, but he is going to win the series. He's going to win against the 2nd seed and 3rd seed. And I think nobody wants to be in the 8th seed. And if I'm Denver and the Lakers end up being the 8th seed, I'm worried, especially the health of Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray been out for a while. We don't know when is he going to come back. Is he going to come back right before the playoffs and he's going to be in rhythm? So I'm still worried. I do not want to play the Lakers as the 8th seed or the 7th seed. I think this is the first time me watching the NBA, and I'm in the West, and I only see one team with an identity, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Everybody else, you have no idea what team you're going to see on the court night in, night out. Warriors been up and down the whole year. Oklahoma City, a young team. I think experience is going to haunt them. Minnesota, we know what Towns and Gobert and Conley are going to do. I don't trust them. Clippers, they've proven to us once again that they are not that good. Unfortunately, you can't win with Harden and Paul George. I'm going to give Kawhi a pass because he did win 2 championships, but still, he has not found a way as a leader to lead those 2 guys. I'm sorry. Phoenix, I have no idea who's going to show up. Is it Is it Devin Booker that's going to score 55 points, 52 points, and then Beal's going to have 5 points, and Durant's going to take a back seat? It's just very inconsistent. But the only great thing about the Lakers that LeBron James is a very scary man when the playoffs start.
Well, that's my point, is that the playoffs are different, right? So OKC and Minnesota and Sacramento don't have that playoff dog in them. And while I agree with you, the Clippers have shown us repeatedly that they can't get it done, I just feel like in this open environment where there is no team with a real identity or a real favorite, at least at the moment, a team like that has so many weapons and like buckets, right? And when you're a hooper, you know what I mean. The guys that can just go out and get a fucking bucket, including Russell Westbrook. Let's just not sleep on that man either. So they have 4 bona fide buckets on their team. You know that playoffs is a game of can you get stops, right? And can you go down and score in crunch time? Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, 2 of the best, if not the 2 best wing defenders in the league. James Harden on his night can get a bucket. Russell Westbrook on his night can make things happen. So I just think, while I agree they aren't the favorite and I kind of hate the way that team is set up, it wouldn't surprise me if they made it all the way to the finals. And that's just my perspective. But look, if I had to put money on it, I'm betting on LeBron always. That's just, for me, the easy number.
So we agree probably the best 2 teams in the NBA and the most consistent 2 teams are Denver Nuggets and Boston Celtics, correct?
Yes, but again, I'm not willing to give Celtics free ride to the finals in the East.
Reason?
I don't think.
Tell me about the East. How...
I will. So first of all, East, historically, just a worse division. We all know that. It's gotten better in recent years. Magic are deservedly so in a 4th spot. I think Paolo Banchero is legit. I'll tell you why I'm not a big fan of the Celtics. So I think the moves they made in the offseason, they probably had the best offseason, right? Enormous getting Drew Holiday in a championship point guard and again, arguably one of the best defenders in the league. And Kristaps Porzingis at one point was, titled the unicorn for a reason. Great coach as well. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, obviously 2 of the best players in the league. There's just something about them, again, on the experience side, on that like dog side. I don't think they have it. Jason Tatum, obviously amazing player. Jaylen Brown, obviously amazing player. But if I was to go against a fully healthy Milwaukee team, even though they haven't figured out that Dame and Giannis combo yet, I'm picking Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee's going to the finals in the East. I also think if Embiid comes back, which he has, and is healthy, and they get the 8 seed against the Celtics in the first round, Celtics should win, but they're going to go to 6 or 7. And then Celtics could go to 6 or 7 against like a Miami. So I think they'll get to the point of Eastern Conference Finals. They should face the Bucks, and I actually think the Bucks will beat them. I think we could see a Lakers-Bucks, Clippers-Bucks, or Nuggets-Bucks final.
I'm just not a believer of the Bucks anymore. I actually got a chance to watch the last 3 games, and I do not like how they play. I don't like the flow of their offense. I don't like how Dame and Giannis been playing together. And I don't know if it's a coaching thing, culture thing, or is it players not happy? I can't put my finger on it, but I do know since Doc took over, he has give every excuse in the book, and he's never taken ownership to say, I need to do better. He's yet to do that. The other day he called out the travel team. What? Who the hell cares about the travel team? He's like, we're not as serious. The people that travel with us, I don't know if they are as serious. We need to change a few things. It's like, who cares?
That starts with the coach, dude. It starts with the fucking coach.
Right. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And why are you calling them? Why are you throwing them under the bus? It's on you. And you're talking about, you have a veteran player. You have Giannis, who won a championship. You have Brook Lopez, who's an older guy. You have Dame. You have Middleton. Come on, they're all older guys. Pat Beverly. What are you talking about?
You say these names, and I agree that Doc Rivers isn't really a great coach. He's shown that recently, and that could hinder them. But when you say those names, those bona fide fucking vets in the NBA, you can't tell me the Celtics are going to beat them. You can't. I just don't think the Celtics have that kind of depth and that kind, like Giannis on his day, dude. He's unstoppable. And I guess for me, the issue is, like you said, like Doc is pointing the finger elsewhere. And I actually do understand that maybe if a travel team or staff aren't up to standard, it can affect the rest of the players. But you're the coach. You're driving the bus, right? Take responsibility.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say coaching is easy. It's probably one of the hardest things. And I always say it's not so much about the X and O's, about managing egos and bringing everybody to the common goal, common ground. You know what I mean? And you as a coach are responsible for setting the culture, setting the example, and making sure everybody follows. Doc, you've won a championship in Boston. Nobody taking that away from you. But it's been a disaster ever since. You know what I mean? And it's never good when you come out and blame your staff and you blame everybody. You as a head coach, as the general leader, you got to go ahead and take blame. I'm sorry. Other things, you got to keep it in-house and you resolve those issues in-house. If you think that's a problem, the next morning you go to the owner or the general manager, whoever, guys, 1, 2, 3 cannot travel with the team anymore. There's no reason to go on national TV and put them and throw them under the bus. Why? They don't make shots. They don't do game plan. They don't do any of that stuff. It has nothing to do with them. Sorry, I was ranting about that.
No, I think, well, it's good, right? You're a coach. You've coached at the highest level and you know what's acceptable and what's not. And I think at the end of the day, when you sign up to be a coach, you know that you're going to be held accountable and you're going to be spoken about in the media. So instead of trying to divulge blame, take it, like you said. And it's a shame because I actually want Giannis to win another championship, but I'm not sure if he will, though I do think they still will get out of the East. But on that note, question I've wanted to ask you, I have my answers written down. I can go first if you want. But if you were to start an NBA franchise tomorrow, give me your top 5 picks. So the player you'd pick first, and then if he's not available, the player you'd be second to lead your franchise, right? So obviously the preface, LeBron James is the best player in the NBA, but he's not going to be picked by you because he's 40, right? So I want to hear who you would, age inclusive, what is your go-to 5, and I'll give you mine.
Like as of today, right now in the NBA, we're not talking about prime LeBron. We're not talking about prime Curry.
We're not talking about prime. I'm talking about given their age right now, how much longer you think they can perform at a high level. And your goal obviously is building a franchise to challenge for championships.
I would go, probably I'm going to surprise a lot of people. My number 1 pick will go to Giannis. I will pick up Giannis. Number 2 will be Luka.
Okay.
And number 3 will be Curry.
Okay.
Yeah. And number 4 will be the Joker. And number 5, I would go with, it's a tough one, but I would go with Tatum.
Wow. Okay, we have very different thoughts on where to go from here. So I'll tell you mine.
Yeah. Tell me who's your 5.
Luka's number 1. Okay. Luka, for me, if he continues on this trajectory, let's side note, he's number 1 in scoring and number 2 in assists per game right now, which is madness. If he continues on this trajectory and he ends up winning a couple championships, we're looking at the best offensive player of all time, not even close. KD would be second. And I really believe that. So Luka's number 1 for me. Number 2, again, if we're picking to build a franchise around, number 2 is Wemby. Okay. Number 3 is Jokic. Give the man his flowers. 2-time MVP, still in the prime of his career. He deserves a bit of recognition.
Okay.
Number 4 is Anthony Edwards, and number 5 is Shea. And I'll tell you why. So I've obviously played the younger card, right? Those guys are all young and they have a big potential. But when I think about the greats, right? And what separates them. Number 1 is like, can you go get a bucket at any time, right? Which is why Jokic goes down to 3rd, because Jokic, even though he can bring the ball up, like he still has to be given the ball. Guards are always going to be, I think, for me at least, the greatest of all time, because at any given moment, you give the guard a ball, or he gets the ball, he takes it, and he goes and he gets a bucket. He or she, right?
Right.
I think what we're witnessing with Luka, because Russ did something on a lower level before that was exceptional, I think we don't really truly recognize how incredible it is what Luka's doing, right? So Russell broke this whole stigma about the triple-double, and he averaged, triple-double for a season, whatever. So because that baseline is there, what Luka's doing is kind of just like a little bit better than what Russ did. But Luka is the most complete offensive basketball player of all time, and he does things at his own pace.
Correct.
He's chilling the entire time. He doesn't break a sweat. He wants to get a step back 3, it's done. He wants to get all the way to the bucket, it's done. I bet you if you watch Mavericks games and you count the amount of almost assists, so great pass Luka makes, but teammate misses a shot, I bet you if those all go in, his assist numbers are doubled, right? Which is the case for a lot of good guards, but Luka specifically, like, the guy can do anything. And when you think about the fact that they're 5th right now, closing in on 4th, they've had an injury-riddled season. Their best lineup has played together for 120 minutes. That's 4 games. That's it. Okay? And that's with the 2 guys they picked up in the trade deadline. I'm telling you, they're a sleeper pick to get through the West. I don't know if they can win a ring, but they have ring players with Kyrie. And again, like when you think about the trajectory Luka's going on, like for him to cement himself as a potential MVP, they now have to go to the next level. They now have to get to the conference finals and then the finals and then win rings, obviously. I've noticed something pretty interesting. So I don't know how much you're keeping up with March Madness, but what's been really nice to see this year is that 3 of the teams in the Final Four have big men. And like not big men like Wemby who can step out and dribble and shoot. Traditional big men. So you've got Zach Edey at Purdue, I think,
And
who's averaging 30 and 16.
Correct.
You have DJ Burns, my favorite guy in the freaking tournament. Hilarious guy at NC State who's just getting buckets. I think he had 29 and 10 last game. And then at UConn, you have Donovan Clingan, who in his last game had 20, 10, and 5 blocks. And to see the reestablishment of the traditional big men in college basketball, even though we're kind of moving away from that in the NBA, is pretty cool.
I don't think it's cool at all. Definitely not. My cup of tea. I don't really enjoy it. Watching Purdue is kind of boring. They keep throwing the ball inside. Look, it is nice to see, but I just don't think you can win throwing in the post, especially nothing against the big men that we're seeing in college. I just don't think any of them are going to do that in the NBA. I don't think that's going to transform into the NBA.
So I actually don't think any of them will make the NBA.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was my next point.
So I'm just not a fan of it. It's working. I mean, the goal is to win an NCAA championship. So I think probably one of those teams will win it due to their size and their post-up games. But I just think we went away from it, and it's proven that it's not a high percentage way of winning. But let's skip the NCAA March Madness of the men. Let's talk about the women.
It's mad.
The Final Four of the women was
mad.
freaking phenomenal. Women basketball is back on the map. The game, Iowa, and oh my gosh, Iowa and UConn in the finals. Oh, I haven't seen anything like it.
It's funny. I actually think Paige Beckers is better than Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is a bucket, and that girl is gonna go. Probably transform the WNBA.
Agreed.
Like she is a women's Steph Curry,
True.
and she's got her own swag and her own belief in herself. But Paige Buckers, I've been following her since she was hooping in high school because she was so different. She sees the game in a way that I haven't seen someone see the game, both men and women, in a long time. She does a bit of everything, and then for her to come to UConn, lead him to the Final Four freshman year, lead him to the final sophomore year, tear her ACL junior year, and then come back senior year and lead him back to the final again. I mean, testament to her mentality and her resolve. As much as I think she's more all around than Caitlin, like when you're a shooter and you're shooting like this and the world is fucking on your back, like momentum is a huge thing. Confidence is a huge thing. For all we know, Caitlin Clark might drop 50 in the final. She might just go off and pop off like 12 threes, right? And that's where I don't know if UConn can handle her.
But you're underestimating her passing. She did have 12 assists. And one of the best skill that she has, pass aheads. She passes the ball up so beautiful, so amazingly. I love how she does it. Her passing skills are phenomenal. I really wanted to see her against LSU because LSU was a more physical team, a lot more athletic team.
Dude, she cooked.
She cooked them. She looked as the fastest player on the court, most skilled player on the court, and hands down, she was the best player on the court.
Bro, Haley Van Lith, the girl that's guarding her, okay? Haley Van Lith's been working out with your boy J-Law for a couple years. She can hoop. Okay, she's a problem. She got cooked.
She had no answer.
I know. I was surprised too.
But I mean, women basketball is back on the map. And honestly, it took those two girls to bring women basketball the light that it deserved. I'm very, very proud and very happy.
So I think one of the last things I want to talk about, and maybe we can make a habit of doing this more often in our podcast, is highlighting a couple Arab athletes around the world that are doing things in a positive way, or speaking about topics, or just succeeding on the court or in the pool. So I've got a couple I wanted to shout out. People I think, one, would be great to eventually have on the podcast, but two, people that I think are honestly great role models for anyone aspiring to be an athlete in our region. So first and foremost, I have to admit, I don't know too much about her because I heard about her right before the podcast started. But Jenna Isa, she's NC State women's hooper. They're in the Final Four, and she is openly practicing Muslim faith in front of the world in spite of what's going on the big stage. So I just wanted to shout her out. But in terms of Arab athletes around the world that I think are bringing their respective countries in that sport to the limelight, number one has to be our boy from Jordan, Musa Tamari.
Agree.
Just led Jordan to the finals of the Asia Cup. Phenomenal football player, really technically talented. And what's nice is that the team actually is playing in a way which suggests the coach has a long-term vision for Jordan. And my call right now is they're going to qualify for the World Cup and maybe even get a couple points, maybe by, in one of their first games.
Just before we move on, I had the chance to meet him last week. Great guy, very down to earth. Oh man, he was amazing. I really enjoyed the conversation we had. And then I think I met him the night before he had a game here, and I think they beat Pakistan. I think it was 7-1. He had 3 goals. The guy's a phenomenal athlete. I mean, he's a great guy, great person, and I'm very proud of him. And I'm proud of the Jordan national team, football team. They've been doing great, and I really want to see them qualify to the World Cup.
Me too. The second one I want to shout out is Ziad Al Mayouf. He's a Saudi boxer. The guy, it's so funny when you start to observe boxers from a distance, because obviously the very essence of their sport is to be relentless and essentially beat the shit out of their opponents. But you get him behind a camera on Instagram, on social media, he's calm, he's well-spoken, he speaks out about mental health and all the different kind of topics that are, relevant in today's world. And so he's someone I think young Arab aspiring athletes should look up to, should follow him on social media. He's always talking about adversity and how he's overcome a lot in his life. But then you see him switch to being the killer instinct of an athlete that you need when he goes around and he gets in the ring. So he's someone I really, hopefully one day we can have on this podcast. And the last one for me is Abdurrahman Al-Arabi, an Egyptian swimmer that went to Notre Dame. It's funny, he's quite authentically himself on social media. He's very open. He posts quirky little videos, and he's been very transparent and vocal about mental health. And I think to be in America and university as an Arab right now and be so comfortable in your own skin, while also killing it in the sport that you're doing, he's a swimmer, is a testament to his mentality and his resilience. So just wanted to shout him out as well.
You mentioned great names. I'm going to take a different direction. I want to highlight 3 important countries, but then I'm going to highlight some players. Lebanon, Qatar, and Iraq. Both of those 3 countries, I'm speaking basketball, we've seen Arab players playing in their leagues. And that is a huge step.
Sorry, Sam, let's just clarify that for what that means and why that's a huge step, because maybe some listeners don't understand.
So usually in most leagues or in the Middle East, when they think of bringing imports, they think of bringing American or European player. They never think of picking up another Arab player from another Arab country. This year, we are seeing it all over, especially in those 3 countries. Riyadh, which is the powerhouse of the Middle East and in Asia. They signed Sonny Sakakini. He's been doing wonderful. They've been killing the Lebanese league. They won the Dubai tournament, and now they are 1 game away from making it to the final 8 of the Wasl League. Qatar, they have 2 amazing players. One of them Jordanian, Hashim Abbas, the younger brother of Zayd Abbas, and he's doing great there. They just signed one of my favorite players, Bahraini players, named Mustafa Hussein. I call him the Curry of the Middle East. The guy can shoot the threes from everywhere.
He popped off against my boys in Kuwait last year, didn't he, in the final? Yeah.
He did.
That's why you brought him up.
Exactly. And he has been on a tear, and he's doing great. And his team, I think, won the championship in Qatar last month. And now we go to Iraq. Iraq has a rule where every team gets to have an Arab player from West Asia. And we are seeing, I think we had 4 Jordanian players play in the Iraqi league. We had Amin Abu Hawas, Ahmed Hamarshi, Muhammad Shahir, and Ashraf Hindi that played in the Iraqi league, along with some other Syrian players. So this is a huge step. This is great. And I'm very proud of those 3 countries, and I want to see it more. And I'm hoping we see it more in other countries. So that's why I want to take that direction, because I want to show light to those countries for being brave and taking that step, because I think there's a huge step. There's a lot of great Arab basketball players, and their skills level have changed, and they can go ahead and compete for an import spot.
Well, you're making me want to suit up now. If that's the case, if that's the direction we're going in, let me get back on my pro game.
Let's go get in the gym, baby. You know you can only get right at NC13, baby.
I already told you, July 2024, we're going to film me cooking you. August 2024, I'm signing my second pro contract. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Sam, always a pleasure to see you, my man. I miss you. I'll be back soon.
It's all good, baby.
For all our listeners today, Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and all other podcasting apps. It makes a big difference for Sam and I. It means we can keep bringing you content.
And make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it.